Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin.
Some see heroes. Others, only egos. We see the era of billionaire athletes. A fad to some, the future of money to others. We see crypto's trillion-dollar swings. The end of jobs, or the end of human struggle. We see the endless funds fueling the AI hype. While others follow the noise, we follow the money.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Matt Miller.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting to see all of you here. We had a great night last night. I met a lot of really cool people, and I'm excited to meet a lot of you today as well. We are pumped to bring you leaders from across not just finance, which we always do, and technology, which increasingly we always do as well, but a lot more media, sport. Last night we had Mario Carbone here, which was very cool. So restaurants, hotels. But as I said last night, and I'll say it a lot throughout the day, just as importantly as the speakers that we have and getting ready for the race is meeting each other. So I met a ton of great people last night. I got a ton of really good intel for my show. By the way, I'm Matt Miller. I anchor a TV show on Bloomberg called Open Interest from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. every day. And I really rely on these kind of connections in order to bring you better reporting. I should say we also have a ton of great journalists here today. My colleague on live TV, Danny Berger, is going to be up here doing some great interviews. She's going to talk, for example, with Scott Rubner. She's going to talk with Thoma Bravo. She and I are going to talk with George Perez. So real business leaders and people that the market care about a lot. But we're also going to talk with my colleague from my podcast, Hannah Elliott. She's here with Magnus Walker back there. My podcast, by the way, Hot Pursuit. Search Bloomberg Hot Pursuit if you care about cars and check it out. We're going to talk with Mattia Binotto from Audi. Right now, we're also going to talk with Susie Wolf. She's got a new book out, which is really exciting. We're going to talk with Dan Towers from Cadillac. It's so cool that there's so many new entrants in Formula One. And I am genuinely pumped for this race because I think the season started out kind of weird with these new regulations, but each race got better and better, and they're changing the rules a little bit for this race, so it'll be so fascinating to see how they do, and I hope you guys are excited for that too. Before we get started with this day, I have a couple of announcements to make. We encourage you to take advantage of our attendee hub. You scan a QR code somewhere for more information on the agenda and opportunities, as I said, to meet other people. I also want to acknowledge our sponsors here at the Bloomberg House. Bloomberg House is so cool. This is something that we started out doing in Davos, and it worked so well that our leaders said, look, let's do it in the U.S. somewhere, and Miami seemed like the perfect place because we see this huge diaspora of people from Manhattan, Chicago, and LA coming down here. Wall Street South is really taking shape, and we want to do a better job covering it. So I think it was a great choice to do it here. We have some really helpful sponsors that I want to thank. First off, Corient, presenting sponsor. I met some guys from Corient yesterday, so I'm really excited to be working with them. Also, our supporting sponsors, DXC Technology, helping us out, especially on the tech side and AI. Always very important. So I want to thank Okta as well, another sponsor. I want to also introduce you to my boss's boss, the CEO of Bloomberg Media, Karen Salzer here. So give her a big hand.
I don't think there are that many bosses in between us. So, but anyway, so thank you, Matt. And thank you to all of you for being here. Welcome. We are so excited to bring Bloomberg House, as Matt said, to life here in this city this week. Obviously, during Formula One week, it's perfect timing when the worlds of sport and capital and media and business and culture all collide. And there's really no better place for it than Miami, which has so rapidly emerged and continues to make progress along the world stage. As Matt said, we gathered leaders a couple of months ago in Davos at the World Economic Forum for creating a space for both industry conversations, but also, as Matt said, conversations, connections that we hope you'll make today. Today, the backdrop is different, the topics are different, the climate is certainly different, but the goal is really the same. It's to gather people in a place where business interests and influence intersect, and to bring together people who are shaping the future. So this week in Miami is certainly one of those moments. The world, the markets are evolving so quickly and in real time. And Bloomberg provides the critical context that people need. It's through our journalism, through people like Matt and others who you'll see on the stage today. It's through our data. And it's also the voices that you'll hear throughout the day. But before and after those conversations, please do, as Matt said, take advantage of being here to meet, to connect. This is the other part of Bloomberg House. It's the opportunity to create relationships because information, data are all important, but it's leadership and it's connections that really turn insights into action. And that's what our live events are about, Bloomberg House and others. It's about helping people develop informed perspectives and also moving business forward. So please enjoy your day, enjoy each other, and now let me turn it back over to Matt and get the day really started. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage Mattia Binotto, CEO and team principal of the Audi Revolut F1 team, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Matt Miller.
All right, this is very cool for me because, as I was telling Mattia before, I spend most of my day talking about stocks and bonds and private credit, and I care much more about cars and racing. If you've seen my show, you know that's the case. Mattia, also, I was lucky enough as a kid to go and do a lot of my education in Germany. I think, grew up in Switzerland, and then before you went to Bologna and then got involved with Ferrari. I started watching F1 right when you started your first job, I think, for Ferrari, right in the early 90s. And to me, those were the glory days. You had, obviously, Schumacher versus Häkkinen. You had Senna versus Prost. How would you describe the arc that you've gone through in your career, and also that the league has gone through from those days, the glorious V12s and V10s, to today's 50-50 energy harvesting?
So hi everyone. First, I'm pleased to be here. I think it's a great opportunity. As you said, I grew up in Switzerland. I've made my university in Switzerland. And then I moved to Italy because I got a great opportunity to join Ferrari as a team, F1 team. I started as a graduate, engine engineer, and most of my career has been in Ferrari. I stayed there for 30 years, from graduate by becoming managing director, team principal of the Scuderia Ferrari, and I left by 2022. So, as I said, almost 30 years there. And I've been very lucky because when I joined, the year after Michael Schumacher joined, Jean Todt was the team principal at the time. And these have been incredible years, not only because of the success, which came later. So the first championship was in 99 and then 2000, but because it has been the years where Ferrari has really created the foundations for a winning team and the future success. It has been the years where the team has been built from the skills, people, organizations, methodologies. And it has been for me a great school at the time. So when I joined, or at least when we won in 99 with a constructor title, it was 21 years that Ferrari was not winning a title. In the following years, and with Michael, we won in total 16 titles between drivers and constructors. So it has been an incredible period. As I said, I've been lucky to be part of that era, because success is when you achieve it through big efforts, it's somehow incredible. Now, to the second part of the question is how different it was and what has been the journey with F1. So F1 was very different at the time. So still it's about racing, car racing, drivers on track.
It was also difficult, I imagine.
It was also difficult, yeah. But it was about fuel and lubes. It was really a sporting and technical challenge. Today it has turned to be more and more an entertainment. It's more fun for the persons and the fans watching the F1. It's, and you can see the business had grown up incredibly. At the time when we were winning with Ferrari, as I said, it was total 600 people in a team like Ferrari. Today it's more than 1,500 people, so more than double. The budget maybe 200 million per season. Today is over more than 500 million per season. So it's the complexity of the product, the number of races, the business in itself, fan engagement, media. It's a different world. So, and the complexity in itself as well, managing those teams today certainly has increased. But myself, as I said, being very lucky to be part of that journey at the time. Success, but not only, as I said, it has been for me a school. And which today, again, by leading the Audi F1 project, certainly I've got benefits from it.
So what is it like to go from, a team that already was world famous in racing? I mean, clearly it doesn't get any bigger than Ferrari and Jean Todt, to building a team almost from scratch. I mean, I know that the Audi team is a new entrant, but you bought a team that already existed, but you're still having to go out there and find the Mattia Binottos of today, right, to hire. And there must be, because the budgets have more than doubled, a massive talent war, right? Also, the organization is just so much bigger and more complex, even before you get to talking about the cars. What is it like to build that kind of organization from scratch?
It's our biggest challenge today, to become a winning team. Audi has participated to most of the motorsports series by winning. The most famous is Le Mans Endurance, Dakar, Rally, introducing at the time the Audi Quattro, and for the very first time the four-wheel drives in a motorsport and in a racing environment. So Audi is used to win in the motorsports, but F1 is the pinnacle of the motorsports. It's a different league. The cars are different animals, and the complexity are certainly a lot higher. And as well, if you look, what are the competitors? Monsters, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, all established organizations in F1, with all the proper assets, infrastructures, organizations. So the challenge now is the most difficult for Audi. And we want to win. We want, again, showing that Audi is Vorsprung, by the way. It's innovation. And we want to come, join, and win in our way. Now, as you said, the challenge is to transform what was a former private small team in a winning team. And sometimes it's even more difficult than starting from scratch, because then you are a small team with the wrong culture, the wrong mindset. They were simply used to participate, not to spend money, to count money. But now is the time that we have to become the best in class in that series, in that world. So we need to invest on our future. We need to invest on the talents, as you said. Ferrari did it at the time when I joined myself. Ferrari in 1995 invested in 15 new young engineers. I was one of those. And we are exactly doing the same. So now we are investing on very young graduates for the future. It's an investment on the future because we believe that will be for us a key pillar of our success. And we are investing on diversity. Because if at the time the young people were certainly an important factor for the success, I believe that today diversity as well. And what's diversity we can stay here discussing for a while, but diversity in thinking, diversity in innovation. It's really different nationality, different genders, whatever you can, because the sport has become so complex and the decision-making process is so important that young talents, skills, and diversity for me are the pillars of the future. So we are hiring, as you said, as much as we can. Why as much as we can? Because there is a budget cap in F1. So you are capped in terms of money that you can spend through the season, and salaries are part of the cap. So you need to balance between car development, pure techniques, investments, general services, but salaries as well. No? So that's why I think that's the balance we need. But investing on, as I said, young graduates, young people is where we are trying to do, to create our foundation.
By the way, two questions out of that. One is, as you said, you're from Switzerland. Did you go, you went and studied in Bologna after that, right? Or just moved down to Italy? Because I'm wondering what universities you tap to get your talent. And a related question is, if you're tapping people from Switzerland and your headquarters are there, doesn't that put you at a disadvantage for the price cap, since other teams are in far less expensive locations?
So our location is expensive. I grew up and I studied myself in Switzerland, by the way, but we are hiring people not only from Switzerland, we are hiring people from around the world, looking at the best in class. We have created our own engineering academy in our team, Audi F1 team, where we are going through an important, let me say, assessment when recruiting those candidates. The last year has been the very first edition of our engineering academy, more than 6,000 applications for 6 engineers at the end. So it has been a big assessment. But yes, living in Switzerland is costly. The salaries in Switzerland are higher than the other teams, maybe in UK and Italy. But the current financial regulation in F1 are considering that difference. So we've got an allowance for the delta cost of the living in Switzerland. So that's why that is somehow balanced the extra, let me say, cost of life in Switzerland. But investing on young is bringing new energy, creativity, skills, talent, but as well it's a strategic approach to the salary level as well.
Does it make, I was inspired by the Quattro success when I bought my first car. When I got my first job, I was living in Frankfurt and I picked an Audi A4 Avant with the 2.5 liter TDI and a stick shift. It was a great vehicle. Vorsprung durch Technik convinced me. Is it a different feeling to work for a team that makes cars people can actually buy? Because Ferraris, I mean, unless you live in Miami, you can't afford a Ferrari, right? You guys, I'm sure, have all got Ferraris, but most people can't. And so it's so cool that you can work for a team now that the fans can actually drive the product.
After 28 years in Ferrari, I'm Italian. I grew up in Switzerland, but I'm Italian. Certainly Ferrari for me was my passion. I was a Ferrari fan. And when joining Ferrari for me was the best I could do, a dream. So when I left Ferrari, what should I do, really? Should I still continue working in F1? Should I move to another team? Mercedes was my competitor, McLaren. I would never do it. And Audi came. No, true. And finally, Audi joined F1. And first, as you said, for what the brands represent. Now it's a big brand in motorsports. Second, I think is the most exciting challenge today in F1. Starting almost from scratch. Not only the chassis, but as well the power unit, with a clear commitment from the full Audi board and the full, I would say, corporate in there in Ingolstadt. It's a big project, it's the most exciting. And it's Audi, where, as you said, most of the people may buy an Audi. So by transforming that journey in a success and a successful team, I think that will be my best project in the life. So after Ferrari, honestly, that has been the only one which I have, as a matter of fact, considered. And as you said, it's for everyone. No? It's everyone can reflect into the Audi project and in our team.
What do you think of the new formula, the new regulations? You described it as an engineering project that's turned into like an entertainment product. I always think of it as a limit driving sport that has gone to become a resource management sport. I don't know how many times I hear the announcers say energy harvesting, and as a fan, I'm not totally in love with it, I'll be honest with you. although I think the races have gotten better and better. China was much better than Melbourne, and Japan, for a viewer, was way more interesting than those two. And there are going to be some changes here. So what do you think about that? Having, been around when the driver mattered most, and now it's like how much battery you've got.
As first, what's the DNA of F1? It's entertainment, it's sports, but it's a technical challenge. And F1 wanna be it's a platform of innovation. It's a platform for innovation for manufacturers. It's a platform for innovations in general. We are at the edge of the technology. So reviewing the previous regulation was necessary as well. When we introduced the previous one in 2014 with the electrification of the power unit, already it has been a big step forward with the highest efficient engine in the world somehow in F1, maybe even not properly promoted, but it was the most efficient engines we had. And now is the next step forward, and I think as F1 we have to do it. Now, I know that when you start introducing a new regulation, you may have things that are not perfect at the start, that need to be improved. That's everything you do when it's new improvements are required. But the overall format is still a great format. As you said, watching races that are overtaking. We should not forget that at the early 2000s, the races were boring with no overtaking. And here maybe there are nostalgic sayings that before it was better. But before, people were even vocally saying, it's not great, no overtaking, it's boring. Now we've got a great show. And I think the show is great, by the way. As you said, overtaking, racers, drivers fighting on track. It needs to be fine-tuned. Yes, it needs to be fine-tuned, but that's fine-tuning that we are going through. But I think, as I said, it's a great platform. Energy is part of the automotive today. So and I think it's how the drivers have been having been very vocal that it was not so great. So the fans are catching it up. Media are telling it. But once we have fine-tuned and no one will discuss it anymore, you simply focus on the show, entertainment, and the overtakings you got on track. And I think it's a big show.
How are your drivers? I mean, you have in Nico Hülkenberg a driver who has experience in not only this league, but also, with the previous driving style. And then Gabriele Bortoleto, a young star. Do the younger guys pick this up faster? I mean, I see like Kimi is doing great, right? And Max is not. So is that about the changes, or?
Max is not, because he's not the fastest today on track, so he will complain. But I think that, you said it right, we've got two drivers ourselves. Nico, almost 40, not so young anymore. Gabi,
40 is
31.
still young, I feel like. 40 is still pretty young.
For a driver, how old are you? But, so obviously we've got 21 and 40, but both of them are picking it up. Okay, Nico is very happy with the car's handling. He's enjoying that format. Yes, fine-tuning again, but generally speaking, he's enjoying as much as Gabi. I think at the end, we just need to get used to a different format to before. And that's everyone. It's always true when you go through a change of a transformation. So we need to get used to it. But again, 3 races only, and the show was there already. So we should be positive.
What do you think about the new entrants? My partner Hannah was always telling me like, wow, there's so many new teams coming to F1, and it took me a while to sort of clock it, but now you have Audi coming in, you have Cadillac coming in, you have Ford coming in. Like, it's a whole new paddock, really, and good for you because you wouldn't want to go to Mercedes and McLaren. What does it mean to you to have more teams?
It's great, and it's showing again how the platform is attractive, no, to manufacturers and automotive. It's creating a great business at the end for fans, for automotive, for manufacturers, for everyone. And the fact that Audi has been attractive as much as Cadillac or Ford are important signals. So, and the fact that we are here today, by the way. So at the end, I think it's great to see that business, which is a sport we should never forget, is so attractive to everyone, because for us that we are working there at the end, it's make our days even better, funny.
But by the way, what is it like for you as an engineer, a trained engineer, to deal with so much business stuff? Like, I was listening to Mario Carbone yesterday on stage, and I'm thinking, this guy is a chef, like he's a cook at heart, and he's talking about buying and building hotels, right? So it's a totally different skill set. And for you, it's the same jump, right? From designing an engine to convincing a sponsor to pay you money.
I think it's very similar. I was a poor engineer selling smokes. I'm still selling smokes in my business. It's about telling the right story. It's about convincing people. It's about motivating people. And I think you can do that from an engineer or, let me say, more a manager's side. But at the end, it's a team effort. It's not individuals. I'm part of the team as much as all the other individuals. We've got different roles, but I think we are all together. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Simply stick to the objective and do it together.
I mean, I don't think many people could do it. So you could give yourself a pat on the back for that, because it's difficult to wear both hats successfully. So I'm very excited for this race. There have been some slight changes to the regulations. It's pretty technical stuff, but how would you explain the changes that we've seen, and how do you think it's going to affect your drivers?
I think, as we said before, it's fine-tuning, ongoing. I'm sure it's not the last one we will have. So based on the first initial 3 races, we have decided what could be improved in the short term, which is somehow reducing, as we said, the energy management by reducing the harvesting opportunities. It's reducing maybe the boost in overtaking to create less unsafe situations. But when you come to technicalities, it's a lot of details, which I don't think that the fan will recognize from outside. Maybe more the drivers being less affected by some strange behaviors or strange energy management situations.
No more super clipping.
No more, a lot reduced super clipping. So less, let me say, comments on it, which will help for the sport. But it's not big changes. It's really fine-tuning again.
How do you think you're going to do in Miami? And how important is this, U.S. exposure? Because now you have Miami, Las Vegas, Austin. It's huge. It's huge for us. It's huge as well for our market here in the USA. So it's important one. But we should not forget Audi has joined with a clear ambition is to win, or aiming to win by 2030. As to create solid foundations, it takes time. Hiring people, creating the infrastructures. So that's our very first year. We are building and growing and learning. So my expectations need to be managed. So if you look at the start of our season, it has been okay. Fighting the midfield, scoring points in Australia. Big competitors are doing worse than us. So making it wrong in F1 is easy. So I think that by having started in the right position, no fundamentals problems with the car is great for us, but it's not the year we are aiming to win, not yet. That will take time. So, but scoring point and trying to do well is important to us. And again, being here in Miami after the first 3 races, again, to show the potential of our car, we have always been fighting for points at the end in the race, being in the midfield, but with a great pace. Again, to continue showing that even through the season, when everyone is bringing developments and we're bringing developments, we can keep that level of competition. That's very important to us for the credibility of our project, because from here onward, we always need to improve ourselves. We've got an objective to win, so we need to progress. But it's, in F1, patience is required as well. It takes time. It's sometimes changes take a while. If you are hiring people, they need first to realize where they're living, where they're working, the environment. If you are building infrastructures, it may take years. So for us, being here in Miami, Austin, Las Vegas, as you said, is important, certainly, because finally we are here as Audi. But we need as well to look ahead, making sure that we are not distracted by our long-term focus, which is 2030. Mattia, thank you so much for spending the time. We really appreciate it. Mattia Binotto.
Please welcome to the stage Orlando Bravo, founder and managing partner of Thoma Bravo, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Danny Berger.
you all so much for joining us at Bloomberg House Miami. Orlando, thank you for sitting down with me. Always a pleasure to see you in your hometown.
Danny, it is awesome to see you here in Miami.
I don't want to start with a therapy session, but I'm kind of going to start there.
I'm ready for that.
Okay,
we
good.
can do that.
Because
I'm good at that.
it's been let's say, strange start for the year for software, and I feel like probably every single question you've gotten in life is, how is AI affecting things? I just wondered that this period in your career, is it comparable to anything, or is like the stress, the anxiety that investors and markets are feeling very unique?
Oh, we've been through a lot. Remember, we're a product in software investing of the dot-com bubble burst. And what happened before and what happened after were incredible periods of hope, uncertainty, just everything everywhere. What we did back then was we focused on the details. At the beginning, people were saying this, and then when the dot-com bubble burst, I had people throw on my desk articles that said, software is dead, it's over. Don't do it anymore in 2021. So we've been through a lot of periods. The financial crisis was pretty crazy. We would see the bookings of our companies down 50%. I remember asking my mentor, Marcel Bernard, in the 70s, he ran many divisions of Motorola, best operator I've ever met. In the depths of the financial crisis, Marcel, how low can it get? And he said, it can go to 0. So we've been through a lot of periods. This one is really, really fun for us because we are learning so much, to be honest with you. You know, we have 100% of our time is in our day job. Find the money, find the deal, improve the deal, sell the deal. We meet with our companies every month from 8 to noon. They were just all here in our sessions of board meetings. We call it operating reviews. Extremely intense. That's 100% of our time. But now the other 100% that we've had to find over the weekends and late at night is learning all this. And how do we apply it to our business? And it's intense and it's really fun. If not, it gets boring.
It certainly does not sound boring. Sounds very busy. I wonder if in any of that, as you're learning, I mean, Orlando, you are always very candid in your strategy and when you've had to make changes. I remember we had a discussion a few years back when you decided to pivot away from crypto. You're always very honest on these things. I wonder if in this current landscape, you're adapting, but are you pivoting at all? Does the strategy need to change in any form as you think about a new world incorporating AI?
Not the strategy and the philosophy. Okay, what we are good at, our core competency, is our team is very, very good about investing in the highest quality assets that serve the enterprise in technology. And we're divided into all these domain teams. We have our fintech team, our healthcare software team, our identity cyber team, our network and firewall cyber team that have been with us for a very, very long time. So that's our one core competency that we do, I feel we do very, very well. The second one is we turn great innovators into great businesses. So innovators that are doing well, that are doing a great job for their customers, that are growing at rapid rates, they're usually not making money when we get them. So we need to make them into private equity fundamental investments that earn 40% margin, et cetera. So that kind of stays the same. The tactics of how you do it and what you focus on, they change about every 3 to 5 years. And they're changing wildly now. The main one is we have had to make our companies very, very quickly AI-centric companies.
Right.
And take some risk on that and invest a lot of money on that and experiment on that and move very, very quickly on it. And that's new.
That feels like almost an impossible task just given how quickly everything is changing. And I'd imagine it's hard to find the talent for that, just considering all this stuff. Yes, AI in some form has been around, but you can't find AI experts, I'm assuming, with decades of experience because this current iteration is so new. So how difficult is it to transform these companies and find the right people to do it?
You know what? What a great question. Since it's all new, you cannot talk to a person that has been doing AI for 25 years. Tell me how this stuff works, right? So you think about the talent, and the nice thing is software and AI are not two different worlds. They're not two separate communities of people where you have the AI people here and the software. They're all the same. They're all developers. They're all providing these solutions. They're building models. They're building software to make those models work. That's what agents are. So the way we look at it is we have 20,000 engineers across 77 companies. Those companies are worth about $300 billion. It's right underneath us. But it's been an incredible amount of work to identify the talent within that group, coordinate them, put them together, give them the right incentives and the right goals in order to move these companies forward.
Surely, though, they aren't all winners, and they can't all be winners. And just the elephant in the room, Orlando, is Medallia. And this obviously predates some of the AI scares. And again, here you've been very candid. You've talked about overpaying for it. There have been some discussions about lenders taking back the keys. Where do those discussions stand now?
I think they'll probably take back the keys. We are not interested in putting more money into the company because we have to be disciplined about that. We could do it, kick the can down the road another 5 years, pretend like it never happened, but we have a big fiduciary duty to our investors. And with that amount of money, we feel we can earn an exceptional rate of return, given what the markets are doing and what we're seeing in other things. But going back to Medallia, we do make mistakes. In every fund, we usually have 1 or 2 companies that don't do well. Mm-hmm. We take that so seriously. We actually end up spending more time on the companies that have issues than on the winners. For VCs, that doesn't make sense. But for us, we have this implied contract with our LPs that will try to save every single penny. I was on that deal. My partner, Scott Crable, was on that deal. We had the management committee on that deal for many years. Now, our investors have known about the issues of Medallia and the mistakes we made for 3 years now. It's been written down at a very, very low level for that time. And the beauty, one of my favorite things about the business is our partners, our investors. We've been together with them for 25 years, and they look at the totality of our luck and our mistakes together. And that's just a beautiful thing in our business.
What about on the lender side? Is there any frustration that perhaps they're not giving more leniency?
Same thing with the lenders. You know, the lenders we have on the deal are the best lenders. They're incredible lending partners. We just financed a deal for a company we have called Octane. After the market dropped and after there was this scare in private credit, we raised about $5 billion for the company in this new market from many of the same lenders. Now, we had to go really wide. We went to like 133 lenders. That's why we have a capital markets group.
Right.
But they also look at everything in its totality as well and have a lot of experience.
By the way, just on that, has the cost of capital changed for software companies? Are you having lenders, for example, charging more just because of some of the fears and the headline risk?
100%. Like the markets behave relatively efficiently. And if you look at the cost of debt, it's about 250 basis points wider than it was when there were no issues in the market or no perceived issues in the market.
Do you expect that to normalize, or is this a structural change?
You know, it's a little bit of what's going on with employment, with layoffs, with other things. It just got so cheap as well. You know, how do you discern it between perceived issues now or what could happen to companies versus the fact that it went as cheap as 350 basis points over SOFR? There was so much money, and there still is, in private credit, and so many private credit funds chasing these deals that the cost of capital was almost nothing.
So that was the part that was out of whack, not this current period. This is more normal.
Look, I think when you look at it and you look at the cost of credit now in a competitive market, the creditors are earning about a 9% yield, unlevered. You could say that's about right when the equity needs to earn 20% plus in a levered deal. It's not like it's crazy. It's certainly not near where it was in the financial crisis. There was no money then.
Right.
You could just not even get it.
Right. Just one last question on Medallia, because you know, as you said, your investors knew about it for some time. They understood that you marked this down. It is quite a large hole if we're talking around $5 billion. How do you think about the rest of the portfolio and essentially saving that fund if it does take a big hit of that size?
Oh, we have some great winners in that fund. We have a much bigger investment than Medallia in Proofpoint. And when we bought that company, it had about $250 million in earnings. It's doing above $1 billion now, and it's absolutely crushing it. So we have enough going on in the portfolio to be able to bury some losses and some mistakes that we made. Now, when you look at our total check in the deal, that's not all us. We are less than 50%, you know, of the total in that deal. So we also diversify. Now, the numbers are very large, but the percentages in each company in every fund have remained the same since 2000 when we had a $500 million fund.
Right. You know, a funny thing has happened post-COVID that everybody was trying to say every company they were investing in, it's a cloud company, it's a software company. Everyone wanted to tout the tech exposure that they have. And now every earnings report from the big major public players, they're saying we have no software exposure or we have very little software exposure. You obviously know this industry better than anybody. Do you think these funds are being honest, or is there some kind of analog washing going on, that people are saying, this is a healthcare company, but maybe it actually is a software company? Do you think that the exposure out there is larger than most funds are willing to admit?
Oh, 100%. There's some gamesmanship around it, right? People are that have healthcare software companies, now they put it in the healthcare bucket, or a fintech company, you put it in the financial bucket. Now, there's some games around with that, but it's also a true fact. Both can be true at the same time. At the end of the day, many, many industries are becoming software companies. And now with AI, they're becoming intelligent software companies. And when you invest in these spaces, you kind of move with the industry itself. I think what people are missing is the beauty about software and AI, and they will come together. They will be no difference between either in the next probably couple of years. But what people are missing is if you take any industry, any process, any function, over time, there's 2 to 3 technology companies that capture the entire knowledge of that industry, process, or function. And they see how operators in it make mistakes, how they do things right, how they innovate, and they put it all together in one place. And those players that collect 30 years of domain knowledge are so much more valuable than the industry around it. That was true 25 years ago when we discovered it and nobody would touch it in private equity. That is even more true today. Domain knowledge and that experience that's captured in these companies is worth so much money. Now here's a debate. Young AI companies will tell you that experience is garbage, because now you can take a young person with access to these great models and they can find a better way. I don't believe in that. When you get down to the details of our companies, Coupa, a $1 billion company doing procurement, all the exceptions, how operators work in procurement, their challenges they have, you need a lot of experience on that. Dayforce, managing the payroll of union workers that get paid by the hour with union contracts all over the world, 100,000 employees, the knowledge that they have will run circles around this generalist stuff. Now, I also agree with the young generation experimenting, because that's the beauty of technology. Maybe in some cases you can find a better way of doing things. Both can also be true, but that experience and domain, I think it's worth a lot of money.
In this world where AI and software become one and they become indistinguishable, what are the roles of the big LLMs? What is Anthropic, Google, who I know you have a partnership, what sort of does their enterprise-facing arm look like in this world where the lines start to become blurred?
That's evolving. Now, if you look at Amazon, Google, the hyperscalers, even to a certain extent Microsoft, even though they go up in that layer, they have learned from experience that they're going to be the infrastructure providers to these domains. They're going to go horizontal and capture the entire world, all the way from chips to the model. Now, who implements that and helps companies do that? It's these domain-specific people that have captured the whole knowledge of their domain that then go to a company and spend 9 months with them saying, what's your problem? How can I save you money? How's your infrastructure? How do you work? How are you organized? And then you adopt a general technology solution to that specific problem. Then you need to implement it. And then you need to make sure they're using it correctly, and then you need to serve them. And that is a tough business. You go deal by deal, and that's a rough business. And that's what these players at the upper layer that we invest do very, very well. Now, there are some model companies that are saying, wow, that's really attractive. I'm going to form services businesses like OpenAI has announced and Anthropic has announced to go do custom projects for these Fortune 50 customers that can afford to spend $100 million, $200 million in a project. Will that work? Sure, that will also work. There are many custom solutions for companies. Accenture will do that. Other service firms will do that. No AI companies will do that. But also these incredible domain leaders, they probably will capture most of it.
That's really interesting. So basically the idea being, I'm trying to remember what the term is, but it's a type of engineer I know that maybe FDE, it's beyond my mind.
Well, if you had a FDE, is a full-time equivalent.
Okay,
that's kind of what software calls it.
Okay, got it.
But if you change it to FDE,
okay,
forward deployed engineer,
I think this is the one
you can charge about 10 times for the same person.
Got it.
Okay,
So it's a
you
marketing
have a
ploy.
business. I see some people in technology here. That's exactly how it works.
Got it,
We now
okay.
have 20,000 FDEs in our
I
portfolio.
see. So, okay, so basically the idea that Anthropic is going to hire all these FDEs and they're going to go out to companies and they're going to replicate some of the software, you're saying that's only really sustainable for the big companies that can spend that. But elsewhere, it's going to be these software layer companies that are going to be the ones that go in and lead expertise. Is that the right interpretation?
I think that's a good generalization.
Okay.
Because once you do all the change management around how to use these agents and what you need to do, adapt it to the company, do these big projects, capture their ROI, measure the ROI, which is a really difficult part. Like discerning how much of the ROI is coming from an agent, but from the fact you did something super smart, operating-wise, is very difficult. By the time you do all that, when you leave, somebody has to maintain it. Somebody has to change the data around it. Somebody has to work with the library. Somebody has to work with an ever-evolving environment. And then you have cyber. Who decides whether an agent has access to what data can they use, what data can they change, who is directing them, how are they being directed? All that environment is new. Right now, there's going to be some messes around it, but also companies will figure it out. But if you get a medium-sized company to do all that, and many of you may be in the room, you're not in the business of doing this. You're in the business of beating your competitor at your business and what you do well. You worry about that every day. Take care of your customers. Who's competing against me? What's my price? Can I hire people? Can I retain people? Can I train them? That's your core. So a little bit of what's going on now is there's so much interest in AI as there should be, because it really will be transformative and it'll be good for the world. It'll be really, really, really good. And look how our lives are changing. I mean, we're going to have more people at Thoma Bravo. It's expanding, not less. The jobs of our junior people are getting much bigger instead of doing PowerPoint presentations and banging out a model for the 20th time. So it's going to be really, really good. But a lot of Silicon Valley is so in love with their robot and their technology that they think their customer will be just as in love with it. And you have to be really humble that they have a business to run, and this is about saving money for them, not doing projects for them.
Speaking of which, we only have a few minutes left, but I would love to discuss some more on your Google partnership, because it does feel like a lot of funds, private capital funds, are announcing various partnerships. What's the thought behind it, not just licensing something from one of these LLMs?
Well, we have a big partnership with the hyperscalers. That came from the software as a service days and has been growing. Google is the only company that has the entire stack, all the way to LLMs. And we have a great relationship with them, and they actually reached out to us and said, how can we work closer together? And we looked at it and we said, wait a minute, if we can get access to your FDEs,
how much are they charging you for that, Orlando?
Well, for us, no, it's a good partnership,
right,
because they monetize our relationship in a different way. If we can get access to this as we quickly transform our companies to become AI-centric, and by the way, the new bookings of our companies are about 40% AI-centric solutions. It's eliminating the labor that works with our system in these domains. It's a new market that just appeared on our lap from this infrastructure that's being built. So if we can leverage that, and if we can get early access to their models, that'll be extremely beneficial to us. And if they can get our business, and you know what they're smart about? They know that our domains will drag Google with them to penetrate enterprises.
I was going to say,
so that's the partnership.
There's an element where it's not necessarily that you need them, but this is something that they need. It's not efficient for them to go out into every single individual software company and to try to pitch them instead of coming to you. I mean, is that a fair assumption that they kind of need you in this if they're going to reach more enterprise clients?
100%. You cannot, it's like my mentor Marcel Bernard would say, which applies to some of the young companies. If you try to do it all, you'll get to none. One day you cannot be an expert in distribution, the other day manufacturing, the other day consumer, the other day payroll, the next day procurement. It doesn't, the world doesn't work that way. And they want to be horizontal and spread their AI knowledge and AI capabilities around the world. Partnering with these domain leaders is a great way for them to do that. Now, a great example of how we try to move very quickly is we got a call from them with an idea. And we moved our 77 companies And we were at Google with our biggest CEOs, the CEOs of our biggest companies, the following week on a Wednesday. And one of the heads of Google goes, "Do you guys usually work that fast?" I go, "Actually, we do, because it's all about leadership and what you focus on, and this stuff is really important."
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in those conversations. Next time, invite us. I'm sure you'd love media there.
That would be interesting.
One to think about. Orlando, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining. This has been such a pleasure. Everyone, please join me in thanking Orlando Bravo.
Thank you.
A lot of founders start out with an idea, maybe in a garage, in a shared workspace, and really being a co-pilot along that whole journey from ideation to execution to maybe monetization one day is really the role we've decided to take in the marketplace. So I feel like we have really found a part of the market and offering that just really hasn't existed. It's this coaching, it's therapy, it's co-piloting on a journey that is unique.
Please welcome to the stage Adam Katz, Head of Entrepreneurs and Founders at Corient, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Christine Cook.
Well, hello everybody. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners in this room, and anyone who has built a business, made a big move, knows that there's a lot of tough calls, late nights, and that moment when you get right up to an acquisition, an IPO, or an event that is a liquidity event that absolutely changes everything. But here's what nobody tells you. It is that moment of triumph, which could be the greatest financial liability. The vulnerability in that moment. So today, Adam Katz has joined us. He's the head of entrepreneur and founder practices at Corient. And we're going to talk a little bit about what smart founders do about that exact thing. So Adam, these career-defining moments like IPOs and major transactions, liquidity events, create life-changing wealth, right? But we often hear that this is actually one of the most financially dangerous periods. So why is that?
Yeah, and to give you a perspective, we actively work with over 200 founders. So this is coming from a lot of reps and a lot of conversations. And I would say that one of the biggest issues is that inertial feeling of wanting to be an angel investor and wanting to support a lot of different things. And you find yourself getting pretty illiquid pretty quickly. And suddenly you're wealthy, but a bank doesn't think you are. So you suddenly are worth 50 million, 100 million, and you can't go buy that brownstone you wanted, maybe because you over-structured with different types of trusts, or you just invested in so many of your friends' deals that the bank looks at that as a zero, and all of a sudden you can't get the mortgage for the place you wanted. So I think sometimes we find that that's a big deal. It's just this inertial force. We try to temper it as best we can, but there's a lot of gratitude towards the community. There's a lot of flexing. And I think that's a big deal also in terms of the visibility of the wealth above the surface. The other thing I would say is that people get a little trapped in expectation judgment. So they'll start doing these things, whether it is the angel check, whether it is the donation to their college, which of course inevitably finds them with these events. And it's a one and done, but the recipient thinks it's regular and recurring. And suddenly their asset liability gets really, really messed up. So we can talk a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so many aspects there. So what do you do, or how do you work with people that are in these like significant liquidity events? Like, what is the advice and how does Corient support them?
Yeah, I mean, we try to give them a lot of perspective of taking certain things out for a spin. So this is somewhat contrary to what people would think, but I want people to start donating differently, helping friends and family, have a big milestone birthday party where you bring everyone along, maybe buy some fun stuff. It's okay, because none of it's going to derail you when you typically have more actuarial life ahead of you than behind you. So many of our founders are in their 30s and 40s, so the compounding would be almost impossible to overspend. I talk about Brewster's Millions a lot, which dates me a little bit, but it's really hard to spend money. You can donate infinity and invest infinity. The thing that we really try to make sure, though, is that everyone will see what you're doing. Do your best to fill in the why you're doing it. And you need to be vocal, you need to be direct with family and friends and community, and explain your why. Because absent that, people just see your what of what you're doing.
So if you could give one or 1.5 or 2 pieces of advice to a founder or an entrepreneur that's sitting in the room here today, what would it be? What should they be doing today and or before that moment arises?
Right. As you can probably gather, I have a lot of thoughts on this and trying to jam this into 5 minutes. I feel like I'm speaking at 1.5 times of when you listen to podcasts, which I have someone who recently told me he's trained his brain to listen at 3 times. I don't know how you could do that.
You should only do 2 times here, because then when people listen later, it would be...
So I think that there's a lot of psychological preparation and structural preparation that if you are eyeing an exit, you should be spending time on. Don't conflate your head down with your head in the sand. I don't mind being heads down, but you got to take your head out of the sand, because some of the structural work we do, we've set up probably 500-600 trusts. There's something in startup land called qualified small business stock, which is a very interesting part of the tax code that we've been navigating since it came about really at the end of 2010. So if you do those things the right way, you create optionality, because I say don't conflate the headline of the deal with the bottom line to your family. So if you structure things the right way, it's possible you could save 7-8 figures of income tax at an event, which could sort of be a synthetic 1, 2, 3 times revenue multiple that you're fighting for at the deal table. So I think a lot of it's that. And then I think psychologically, no one wants to count their chickens before they hatch, but you got to start counting them a little bit, because you don't want it to be this sudden, weird dynamic where you have so much money in the bank that your relationship to money is so confusing and you're actually immobilized. You're almost unable to do anything. So we really want people to enjoy this wealth, use it as a way to access real wealth around time and autonomy and health. But without intentionality, the inertial forces of that head down, maybe head in sand, won't let you access it.
It's a terrific reminder that while you are focused on building a business or having a transaction, that you really do need to carve out time about protecting that in the long, as much as in building it. But thank you so much for that. And for all of you that are interested in getting in touch with Corient, pull out your phones. There's a handy QR code behind us, or look for Adam later today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Miami Mayor Eileen Higgins for a conversation with Bloomberg's Daniel Cancel.
Good morning, Mayor Higgins.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah. We'll jump right in. We don't have a ton of time. So listen, you've been in office a bit more than 100 days now. And, I just want to understand a little bit, what have you found, right, as you entered office? And kind of what are your biggest accomplishments? What have you done in these first 100 days?
Well, one of the things when I was running, and you and I have talked about this, I promised to make sure that the city of Miami, from a government perspective, worked harder, got more efficient, delivered results for the residents. In other words, to have a government bureaucracy that matches sort of the energy of our entire community. We are one of the most attractive cities to work in, live in, invest in, and our government bureaucracy was pretty antiquated. So we've gotten right to work. Permitting for businesses and homeowners was pretty abysmal, and within about 6 weeks, we'd launched same-day permitting for single-family homeowner projects, year-long permitting for maintenance of big office buildings, and have already started deploying a completely integrated system to get rid of 8 computer systems, make them all talk to one another. That'll be AI-enabled. That'll accelerate permitting even more. Done a lot of environmental. Miami is, climate change, it's here, it's happening. We need to make sure we're protecting our environment and our bay. So we've taken the step to make sure in all city contracts and city facilities there'll be no single-use plastics, no styrofoam. And May 1st, which I think is tomorrow, we're launching composting in our city parks and our city facilities. So, in other words, you know me, I'm an engineer. I just show up to work every day, get to work, and don't waste a heck of a lot of time.
Great. You campaigned a lot talking about affordability. It's like the biggest word ahead of midterm elections. So what specifically are you doing to make Miami more affordable for people who live here?
So affordability, I think, I frame it in two ways. One is the cost of housing, which everybody in this room, if you live here, you know it's too high. The other is what salaries are people making in their jobs. So on the affordability piece, the city of Miami has been going back to permitting. I know it's boring, but it's important. It would take 2 to 3 years to permit the construction of an affordable housing building. Mm-hmm. And we need to get that down to 3 or 4 months, right? And so 2 weeks ago, we started the first test project of an 8-story building. Next week, I've got a 12-story building, and 2 weeks after that, I have an 8-story building. And our goal is to try to figure out how we can take a 2 to 3 year permitting process with these 3 live test cases and permit them in 100 days. And so I'll let you know how that goes. We're not going to get it right on the first time, but that's the joy of innovation, right? You try, you figure out where the blocks are, and you move it along. Because I get to break ground 2 years earlier. It means the project costs are more predictable, probably 40% less to construct if we break ground sooner. And then on the other piece, we're talking about jobs. We are so blessed with all of these companies relocating here with amazing tech careers. And we have had a service sector economy where a lot of our low wage and poorest residents are locked into those jobs. And so we're in discussions and in the middle of putting together a plan to have a robust citywide workforce development that pipelines these people into the tech sector. Because the tech sector isn't a job. It provides careers. Right. And that way you decost housing and you raise wages and everything gets more affordable.
Right. I mean, also very linked to the affordability issue is, this huge wealth boom, right? Wealth migration that we're seeing coming into Miami. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about, what are the pros and cons to that, right? So obviously, it is disrupting, right, the region in a different way, and it's a blessing that you're seeing some of this capital leave other places and coming here. But kind of, how do you see it in terms of the good and the bad of what's happening? Yeah.
I talk to mayors all across the country, and they wish they had this happening to them, because not every city is experiencing the economic growth that we're experiencing here. So that is a blessing, to have a growing economy, a place people want to come to, want to live in, want to work in, want to raise their families in. But it has exacerbated the affordability crisis. Like there's no two ways about it. Yep. These folks that are moving here can afford to pay more, and they do pay more. And the people that have been longtime residents of here have had to move further and further away from the jobs that they work on with longer commutes. And so that's the kind of duality of this, which goes back to how do we accelerate affordable housing? How do I, as a city government, make sure that city land is available for housing, right? Because that decosts construction, right? You got concrete, steel, labor, but land costs in a place like Miami is very expensive. So we have a number of projects to make sure we're putting higher density as appropriate. Not all of them are high rises. Maybe you'll do a 4-story or an 8-story, but making sure that we're using our city's assets to balance that. We already talked about the workforce plugging in. And then the other thing is, as people move, making sure that these incredibly wealthy individuals feel that this is a place they want to invest philanthropically in. And more of them are doing that. We've had great investments in the healthcare sector, education, our arts, the cultural environment, and I think that will come with time. I mean, we've all moved to a new place, right? What do you spend the first year doing, going back and forth to Home Depot? You're not being philanthropic. But as people integrate and become part of Miami and feel as it's not the place they've moved to, but the place they're from, we are seeing them contribute more
Great.
to help offset some of the impacts that they've had.
We've seen that definitely from Ken Griffin
Absolutely.
since he arrived.
Absolutely.
So you're
Orlando
expecting-
Bravo, you just had Orlando too. He does a lot of philanthropic work in the community.
Your expectation is that a lot of the newcomers will also eventually, hopefully, step into some of these roles to help invest in this.
And many of them already are.
Great. F1 this weekend.
Oh yeah.
World Cup coming up starting June 11th. 7 matches in Miami.
Yeah.
The stadium itself is outside the city of Miami, but tell us about kind of what you'll be hosting, some of the impact and some of the indicators that you're already seeing in terms of, is this going to be net benefit for the city, et cetera?
Yeah, well, we are thrilled to see the World Cup, 7 games here, and we are taking a regional approach to this. Our stadium's outside the city of Miami limits. The bulk of the hotels that people are going to be staying in are going to be in the city of Miami. We are already seeing an incredible surge in pre-bookings of hotel rooms, especially for the 2 big matches we have, which is Scotland, Brazil, and then Colombia and Portugal. Those couple of days around those games, hotel bookings are already 100% of what they were this time last year. And of course, we're doing a huge 23-day fan fest because not everybody can afford to go to, well, mostly no one can afford, better said, to go to Formula One. But we want people to come to Miami, whether they have a ticket or not, and feel like they're part of Formula One. So our Fan Fest experience is all in Bayfront Park. It's on the water. It's absolutely spectacularly gorgeous. You'll be able to watch every match. Doesn't matter if it's played here. We're preparing with our local residents. Brazil and Haiti, I think downtown is going to be chock-a-block. And it's got a really excellent price, free. So that, trying to make sure that the cost of a ticket doesn't impede people coming to visit. Maybe they can afford a hotel room. Maybe they can afford the restaurants. They don't have the ticket to the game, but they can participate in that collective experience that is soccer through our Fan Fest.
Great. There's been a lot kind of written about some of the host cities, right? So we're seeing like $150 train tickets in New Jersey, New York, round trip to get to the stadium. There was some question about funding, right? Was there federal funding needed for security around Fan Fest, et cetera? So what has that been like for you as we prepared in terms of the cost to put on the event and any compensation that was maybe promised or that that's coming?
So particularly around security costs. Before I became mayor, I was county commissioner, and I co-chaired with chairman of Johnson County, Missouri Commission, a World Cup caucus. And so we were collectively looking at the security costs, which are outrageously high on local sectors, and put together a caucus and successfully advocated for and lobbied for $625 million in federal funding through FEMA that would reimburse local governments for all of these costs. So in the city of Miami, we have put aside about $7.5 million, most of which is for security. Some of it we also have to pick up garbage with and other things, but most of it's police, fire, rescue. And we will be reimbursed by FEMA. That grant has already been signed through the state. The state always passes that through, so that's very successful. Now we're spending some of our own money. Fan Fest, we believe, is going to generate millions of dollars in excitement and revenue and economic activity for small businesses and hotels. So we are investing $5 million to build out that Fan Fest experience.
Great. On the issue of international visitors as well, right? So Miami is one of the premier places for international tourists. What is that looking like? Are you seeing kind of bookings along what you would expect for this kind of event? Do you think there are any kind of headwinds to international visitors coming for the event? What do you expect?
I think we've heard all year long that international visitors have been a little hesitant to come to the United States, which is one of the reasons I'm actually glad we have a big event, because people love their football teams so much. They will take that leap and come here and spend time here and enjoy the beautiful game here in Miami. So we still see international flights looking pretty good. A number of our when you look at the data, we're certainly for the Columbia games, The Colombians are coming to see Colombia apparently beat Portugal, or maybe the other way around. I hope no one's from Portugal watching. But yeah, we're very hopeful. And what we do here locally is very different. Like, our rhetoric is about welcoming people from other places. We are an immigrant city. We value that. We appreciate the diversity that's going on here. And so we just make sure that in all of our marketing, doesn't matter where you come from, you know you're going to be safe in Miami, you're going to be welcome in Miami.
Great. And tell us, F1 this weekend, you were telling me about kind of what the city's put on ahead of the race. So explain a bit what that experience has been like. And
well, I got to drive a race car simulator yesterday. I only crashed twice, so I feel really good about it. But one of the things in all of these big events, they're expensive. And I'm very grateful for the people that come here and stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants and do that. But you also want to have an inclusive experience that is beyond just race day. And one of the things we did at our City Hall was, which is a historic building, has had a big McLaren experience. So last night we had all the vintage McLaren F1 cars roaming around City Hall right by Coconut Grove. And then all weekend long for the next 4 days, you can again go at no cost. And you can be a virtual pit crew, and you can drive your own race car simulator and create your own helmets and get to really get up close and personal with these vehicles, including some of the earliest ones ever made. So I will say it was fun. It was fun. So come on down to City Hall. You'll have a great time over the weekend.
now, at the county, as a commissioner, you were also very involved in public transport, right? And as we talk about all the new residents moving to Miami and some of the growing pains and some of the bottlenecks, that's certainly one of those issues. So what are some of the ideas or things that you're already moving on, maybe you already picked up from what you're doing at the county, that we can look forward to?
Yeah, well, one of my big projects was the opening of the South Dade Corridor, which I'm proud to say is open. It's the longest all-electric BRT in the United States of America, and cutting commute times by 30 to 40 minutes each way for people living in the South. But closer to home in the city of Miami, we are working on a commuter rail project that will connect downtown Miami with stops basically walking distance to where we are here, Midtown, Design District, Little Haiti, and eventually up to Lauderdale. I'm proud to say we are in the president's budget with almost $400 million, as well as in our state budget and local funds. So the design and engineering on that is proceeding, because you're right, you cannot grow in a place that is so geographically constrained. Like, we got water here and we got water there with the Everglades and the ocean. And so we are going to have to build more public transit. So hopefully within a year we'll start to see construction on that commuter rail. So next time you come to where we are now, you could take the train.
Great. Tell me about also you're putting to voters the issuance of a bond.
Yeah.
And tell us why that is, how much money you're seeking, and what you expect to happen there.
What's interesting, you become a new mayor, and you come in and you think you know what the issues are. And I knew we had an aging police headquarters building, but when you get in it and there's no running water on one of the floors, and if you're in the homicide department and you're investigating murders and water is flowing in anytime it rains into a big trash can, the windows are taped closed with duct tape. Bear in mind, we have one of the lowest crime rates in the world. So these men and women are working in conditions in a building that's over 50 years old that is not going to survive. And I took the opportunity also to visit every one of our fire rescue stations. And we have 17 of them, but 8 of them are over 50 years old. 2 of them are over 60 years old. They can't even fit modern fire trucks. And the conditions that our first responders are working in are absolutely horrific. And these facilities will fail. And if these facilities fail, we fail on the only, the foundational thing that local government has to do, which is provide public safety. Right? We have to make sure your neighbors are free from crime. We have to make sure an ambulance gets there on time when your grandmother's having a heart attack. We have to make sure your house doesn't burn down. And these facilities will not last. And we have the bonding capacity without raising our bonding millage to issue $450 million worth of bonds. But we have to ask under state law, we have to ask the voters' permission. So I'll be doing that in August. I don't want to wait. I do not want to be mayor of a city that has neglected, and it has neglected its public safety facilities for decades. I don't want to wait, and so I'm sure the voters will agree in August.
Great. When you ran, it was also on some of these issues, right? Which perceived kind of corruption from previous administrations for many years. So I'm not trying to link exactly the lack of maintenance to that, but what have you found in terms of trying to clean up the books and where some of the funds have been going, et cetera?
Well, we've been analyzing, I think, that the city manager, and we have a city manager form of government, and we have been looking at everything. And that includes contract renewals. Is that an efficient way to do business? Can we save money doing that? Can we do things differently? Analyzing all of our projects, because for those of you that don't know, we had a city commission that was quite dramatic in the past, and not for the right reasons. Lots of yelling and shouting. But when that is what the elected leaders are doing, it's intimidating to staff, and they're not able to work in efficiency. And so the page has been turned on that. We are having very efficient commission meetings. They're very calm. They're very respectful. Doesn't mean we agree on everything. We can have, you can disagree agreeably. And so we are freeing up how employees work. We're also pushing decision-making down, right? Why is a person who knows the answer asking for permission from another person who asks permission from another person who asks permission from another person who asks permission of me? Like, I haven't read the code on that item. You tell me if we should install those kind of windows or not. And so as a result, we're getting more efficient. We will save money in doing that. And that's really, really important because we've got to build smarter and faster. We have flood mitigation projects that need to be installed, and it's got to happen faster. And faster in government means cheaper. And that's good for the residents.
Great. Last question. We were often asked, after your election, and everyone was like, wow, Miami elected a Democrat, right? You look at the map and there's a lot of red. So I know it's a nonpartisan role, but, what does it feel like to be kind of a Democrat, in the state of Florida these days?
Well, I've been a Democrat in the state of Florida the whole time I've lived here, so I'm used to it. But I'm obviously, I think you can tell, I'm extremely moderate, which I wouldn't be moderate if I didn't think it was the right way to govern. But I'm very practical. I'm an engineer by training. I do not need to be an elected official, right? The best thing that could happen to me is I'm not. Then I just go back to the private sector. I make a lot of money, right? I can go to the grocery store in my sweatpants. No one looks at me or asks me questions. At this time in my life, I want to be of service. And so I have volunteered to be of service through an election. And I have promised people I will show up every day, I will work every day, I will listen to their priorities, and I will try to solve their problems. And there are societal problems that only government can do, right? I can't afford to build a park, you can't afford to build a park. But collectively, we can build them. Same thing with transit. And so the residents of this community now, this is my 4th election, and I've always represented Republican areas, so I've always been able to convince crossover voters that I will go to work for them. And I've done it. And people trust me with that because when you win, you represent everybody. You don't represent the people who voted for you. You represent the people that didn't vote for you too, because they need prosperity as much as anybody else. So I just try to be practical. I try to work. I volunteer myself through an election to serve the resident and drive our city forward. And I'm grateful that they have chosen me. And it's an honor to serve the city of Miami as mayor.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Please welcome to the stage Daniel Alegre, CEO of TelevisaUnivision, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Danny Berger.
Thank you so much for joining us for another fantastic conversation here at Bloomberg House. Daniel, thank you very much for sitting down with me.
Thank you, Danny.
And what an exciting time for sports, for you all. I know this is your kind of dubbed summer of soccer, and you've been launching campaigns around it. Can you put in context just how big of an opportunity this is and sort of the campaigns you're doing around it?
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. TelevisaUnivision is the largest media company that creates content for Spanish and focus on the Hispanic market. And you can imagine for Hispanics, it's all about soccer. So we have the rights to broadcast soccer in Mexico, and we have incredible amount of content leading up to the World Cup, around the World Cup, and then obviously the hangover thereafter. People are just going to be so enamored with it. It is an incredible opportunity here in the United States for people to rediscover soccer. You know, it comes and goes, but the number of games that are going to be played here in the United States, I think people realize just how incredible sport it is, and how it really brings people together. And with Hispanics, it's all about football.
How do you, I think the point about America is interesting. You and I even were just talking about this a moment ago, the idea that there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot competing for people's attention in sports. You know, this weekend here in Miami, we have the F1, it's the playoffs in the NBA. What is the process like for Americans, for that audience to kind of like reawaken the love of soccer, of football? Is it enough to just kind of like put ads out there? What's the strategy to draw that audience back in?
Yeah, look, 70% of all soccer that is shown on television here in the United States is on Univision. So we're all about soccer. We're the home of soccer. And you are going to start seeing tremendous activations that happen, you know, from brands that are embracing soccer. And as city by city the games start happening, you will feel that vibe. For us, what we do is soccer used to be, and actually sports in general, used to be a TV-only medium. And then it became a TV and a streaming medium as well. And then it became a TV, streaming, and a social medium. So the number of influencers that are involved around sports and creating content around sports is exploding. And something that we do, we have our VIX streaming service, which is the fastest growing streaming service in the United States on any language. We have a tremendous amount of influencer content that we're creating around the experience, because the world where people would sit and watch the screen and just watch the screen is long gone. Now they watch the screen, they're on their phone, they're on their iPad, they're chatting with people, they're seeing what other people are saying. So having different experiences beyond the screen is what is really the evolution of sports in broadcasting.
And I mean, we should be clear, it's not just soccer. You've also looked into other leagues, Major League Baseball, F1, NASCAR. What is the process like for looking at these various media rights and deciding whether it's right for your audience or not?
Yeah, look, it's becoming incredibly competitive.
Yes.
As you've seen, the price for sports rights are going through the roof. And then you start ending with unnatural partnerships, you know, like cats and dogs getting along. You know, we announced a deal with Apple, for instance, where we are also going to be simulcasting an F1 game here in the United States. That would have never happened before. We had a partnership with DAZN for the Champions League in soccer. So you're starting to see a number of partnerships where we share common rights and expose it much more broadly. But specifically to your question, honestly, we just test it. You know, we do a deal with NBA and we see if the NBA works, or Major League Baseball. Obviously, Hispanics have a great affinity to baseball. We were the ones that actually made NFL really big in Mexico. Televisa is obviously the largest broadcaster in Mexico. We brought the Dallas Cowboys long time ago, about 30 years ago, to Mexico. And now everywhere you go in Mexico, if you mention the Cowboys, they are like big Cowboy fans. So we see it as two-way. One, see what the fans really like, but the other one is actually bring the sports to the fans so that they can actually embrace it and learn more about it.
It's a good point that you've been in some form participating, showing sports, buying media rights for a while now. I talked to a lot of investors who basically, when they buy teams or invest in them, they say the media rights are so valuable and they're only going in one direction, they're only going up. You were just talking about how some of the prices are frothy. Is it fair? Are they only going up, or do you think we're gonna at some point hit a ceiling?
Well, selfishly, I hope at some point we hit a ceiling. Look, the evolution of media is such that the days where there was one show that you would sit everyone around the TV and tens of millions of people would watch are long gone. The Thursday Cosby Show, when everyone would see the Cosby Show, those days are long gone. So from an audience perspective, there are very few events that you can actually bring millions of users at the same time. And that's what advertisers care about. It's sports, it's live events like music events, which is why Univision is investing very heavily on live music events. We host the Latin Grammys, which we're hosting in Las Vegas later this year. That's what advertisers are really looking for. But also, as the world has become much more multi-platform, it's not just TV, it's not just streaming, but it's also social media. It's incumbent upon any media company, which is why I'm so passionate about TelevisaUnivision, to provide an end-to-end solution for advertisers so they can actually connect with audiences wherever they may be and not only rely on that one event that is that one sports event.
But by the way, just before I completely let sports go, you said that you test your audience to see if it's well recepted. I wonder if there was any property, any sports that you tested, any leagues that surprised you that it wasn't as popular and maybe has room to grow with the Spanish-speaking audience?
Well, there's a paddle is one that we've...
Are there professional broadcast paddle games?
There are professional broadcast paddle games.
Please don't tell me pickleball is another one of those.
There is a pickleball as well. There's flag football. There's actually, because there's so much interest in sports,
True.
There's actually many leagues that are starting to crop up. So yeah, we look at it and see what works. We do a test with the rights holders and say, here, let's expose it to our audience and see if it's something that our audience cares about.
So you've talked about how you have this very multi-platform approach. You're working with various content creators, with influencers. You have a profitable streaming platform, which is something no one else can really say. I find your background to be particularly interesting because you're not a media executive who's just had experience in linear TV. You've worked at Activision Blizzard, the gaming company. You've worked at Google, leading their push internationally. How do you think that experience has changed how you think about TelevisaUnivision? Has it changed how you think about this platform?
Yeah, it absolutely has. I joined Google when it was still a relatively small company. It was in 2004, and I was there for 16 years. So I was involved with the acquisition of YouTube, and we saw the evolution of what a video platform can do in terms of user-generated content and the connection that can bring to consumers, while at the same time, how the new content can be created in new formats. So for instance, I've been CEO of this company for 2 years now. One of the things that I noticed is we didn't really have mobile-specific content. So we created our micro dramas. So not only we're the home of soccer, but we're also the kings of telenovelas, of dramas. And our dramas are usually 50 minutes long. And now we have 1-minute dramas that we've created for mobile. Launched them at the beginning of last year. We had 60 different series last year. We will have over 100. And that's really creating a new way for users to be able to connect with the content. Honestly, you have to be there wherever the consumer may be. And the consumer is consuming a lot of content, a lot more content than they did just 15, 20 years ago, because of the advent of the mobile phone and the mobility of entertainment consumption.
How do you make sure, and I know this is a point that you're very deliberate on, that it's not cannibalizing your linear offering?
I think it's complementary. Obviously, when someone is connecting through an iPad or through the mobile phone, they may not be watching it on TV. But if you do it right, and I hate to use the term 1 + 1 = 3, but if you do it right, you can get an incredible moment on TV that is amplified because of streaming. And what I mean by that is, for instance, we have a show in Mexico called La Casa de los Famosos. It's like the Big Brother show here in the United States. And what we do is we have key tentpole events on TV, but we have 24/7 coverage on ViX, our streaming platform. So what happens is people are watching it. It's actually pretty incredible that how much people, kind of voyeuristic, watch 24/7 what's happening in this enclosed house. And then you get to a fever pitch, and then when you have the elimination round on TV, the numbers just go through the roof. So it can actually really feed one and the other.
By the way, can you help me, and maybe you'll feed into this grim view I have, the micro dramas. It feels like a world where audiences, and specifically younger audiences, maybe of all ages, just have a shorter attention span and can't like sit their butts in a couch and watch a long program. Are you seeing a very different change in behavior of audiences too, that is the case, that audiences want something different, they want something faster, they need an action movie where something blows up in the first 3 seconds of the film?
Yeah. It depends on the demographic and the age, obviously. The youth, I think, because of the advent of Reels on many of the social platforms, they have become a little bit more attention deficit disorder,
right.
Where you need to have content, short form content fast. But the other part that is happening is, it's really astounding to see. If you just take a picture of a normal home consuming media, you will see, and this is probably the same in your homes, you'll see a sofa with a TV, with an iPad, with a phone, and people are really interacting, with what's happening on the TV, and then they'll move to their iPad and they'll move to their phone. Hispanic community is very, very mobile connected as well. So we just have to make sure that we have the content for the consumption patterns when it matters.
I want to talk about your audience itself and not just their habits, but also their political leanings, because you came in to the company in 2024 in the midst of an election. I believe you were the only platform that hosted a town hall with both candidates. Is that right?
That's right.
What did you sort of learn coming in at that moment about your audience and more widely the Hispanic population of America, and just how key they were in 2024?
Yeah, well, in 2024 and just how active they are in 2026. I learned two things. So I literally became CEO a month and a half before the presidential elections, like trial by fire. And we hosted Vice President Harris and President Trump on town halls. I learned two things very quickly. One is how wrong campaigns can really get connection with Hispanics. Some of the messages that the campaigns thought were going to resonate with Hispanics were completely off. They weren't really listening to the local constituents. And we have at Univision, we have radio, we have local TV, we have national TV, and obviously we have our streaming service. So we really have a really good pulse of what Hispanics care about. So the data is showing in 24, and it's showing it again in 2026, that the Hispanic vote is no longer a Democratic vote. It used to be a predominant Democratic vote, and it's become an issues vote. And if you address the issues that matter to the Hispanic community in the language that they speak in Spanish, you'll make a tremendous difference. So examples, James Tallarico, the Democratic candidate for a Senate seat in Texas, in the primaries, he leaned in to the Hispanic community, advertised in Spanish, spoke to the community in Spanish, and lo and behold, look at what happened. He ran away with the primaries. Same thing happened in New Jersey with Governor Sherrill. She over-indexed on communicating to Hispanics in their language. So the other lesson that I learned, and this is for anyone who comes from a bilingual household, is we spoke both Spanish and English in my home. And when your parents shift from English to Spanish, you better pay attention. You've done something wrong, and it's time for you to pay attention. And it's the exact same thing with communicating with the Hispanic community. If you assume that you're going to connect with Hispanics in English language media, you're missing that connectivity. We've seen in our data, almost 50% of Hispanics have said, if a candidate shows up and speaks to us on our network in our language, we have a higher propensity to vote for that individual. That's proven to be the case in 24 and yet again in 26.
You've learned that, but have politicians learned that? You gave two examples. Are they the exception or are they the new rule?
I hope it's the new rule. Look, as the head of a large media company, I can't show whether I'm Republican or Democrat. I have to be neutral and impartial. But as Univision being the voice of Hispanics, because we are, the preferred way of getting content, news, and entertainment for Hispanics, our role is to make sure that candidates can connect with the issues that matter to Hispanics, and the one that does the best job and convinces the Hispanic to vote for them, they're the ones who are going to win. What happened just yesterday with the Supreme Court ruling on the gerrymandering and racial influence on gerrymandering, the Hispanic population is over 20% of the United States. Between 2020 and 2024, 50% of new voters were Hispanics. So forget about the racial element of gerrymandering. Hispanics are everywhere, and if you ignore that vote, you ignore it at your own peril.
Of course, you have polling as well. What are you seeing for 2026? What are the issues that voters care about?
It really comes down to three issues. Number one is cost of living. It's so important. It's what happened in 2024. Second, related to cost of living, is the cost of healthcare, is an important element for the Hispanic community. And then the third one is very complicated, and it's the border and border security and ICE. And depends on where you are in the United States. The closer you are to the border, the more in favor Hispanics are about the enforcement on immigration. But that one's a very, very complicated one, because it goes both ways.
And it's complicated by the fact that those issues themselves, there has been this messaging coming into the midterms that the Republicans and President Trump have sort of lost the messaging when it comes to affordability, especially with the war in Iran and energy prices. Have you seen a shift there post-war of concern about energy prices, about affordability?
Not post-war, and obviously the data is just coming out, so it's still relatively fresh. But we have seen a shift, and you're seeing it in the polling, of, it was a very, very strong shift in 2024 towards Republicans on the Hispanics, and particularly Hispanic males. In 2026, it's shifting more, to the normal patterns, but what we are seeing is that vote is up for grabs. And I noticed it when I joined as CEO a month and a half before the elections. The sentiment shift towards President Trump and the Republicans in that last month was tremendous, and it just goes to prove how important it is to be able to connect with Hispanics, because you can't say, oh well, they're going Democrats, so the Democrats are going to win. There's still a lot of time left and a lot of time to convince.
How do you think, just because you do have this audience that are consequential, not just in how they represent America, but how they are a swing vote, they care about issues, they can sway politics, how do you think of, I guess, your sort of civic duty then? And what's important for you when it comes to engagement in these political topics?
It's an honor to be able to represent Hispanics. As I mentioned, we are very active locally. And we have #1 news in most of the major cities in the United States. In Los Angeles, for instance, we're the #1 news source for all languages. Forget about just Hispanic. So we make sure that we provide two sides of the story for our constituents. We're hyper local, as I mentioned. So we create information about, get out and vote. That's a big component of what we do. And then we also put our politicians to test. We ask them the hard questions and make sure that our population is educated and they can make an educated vote.
By the way, much like the way people consume media for telenovelas or for sports, how much of political understanding of where we are in the world isn't happening on linear TV, but is happening, on your streaming platform, is happening through social media? How has that behavior changed for your audience?
Yeah, it's changing quite radically. Podcasts are becoming an incredible avenue for information. We have on VIX, our streaming service, we have a dedicated podcast channel. People are connected with the exception of when they're asleep, and sometimes even when they're asleep, they're connected, the entire day. And they're getting bombarded with information. I think what's important for our audience is that we don't lean one way or the other. We've taken a very concerted effort to be a centrist platform and a centrist broadcaster and provide both sides of the story. And then we also bring influencers and important voices to come speak. So for instance, we have a political show that we launched about 3 months ago called Esta Semana, just in time for the midterm elections. And we've had Gavin Newsom, we've had Cornyn, we've had the Border Czar on, and we have from all areas of the spectrum are on this show because we want our Hispanics to be able to understand what's happening and make the right choice for their elected officials.
Oh, we're just about out of time, but I have to say 2026 is a huge year for you, a huge year for the media landscape, from all the sporting events, from the midterms too. I mean, is it fair to say that this is just like among the more consequential years for media?
Absolutely. Sports has been tremendous, with the Olympics and now obviously the World Cup showing up, and the energy and the excitement around the World Cup is palpable. But this is an incredibly important election. And every election, everyone says this is the most important election of our generation. But this midterm election is going to define not only the control of Congress, but define what these next 2 years and likely what happens thereafter. I'm very honored to be able to be that avenue of information for the Hispanic community in the United States and around the world.
Well, I won't ask you what you think the makeup of Congress will be like after the midterms, much like I won't ask you who you think will win the World Cup. I think we'll end it there, and I'll save you those, maybe off stage.
Thank you.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining. Everyone, please join me in thanking Daniel Alegre. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here for these great conversations. Just a quick note about lunch. This wraps up our morning programs. Thank you to all of the great speakers and moderators. Bloomberg House is still buzzing, and we have a lot of things going on during today's lunch break. So if you're pre-registered, we have our roundtable on navigating the future of agentic AI. That will kick off at ZZ's Club at noon, just through the Paradise Plaza. And for those of you who have pre-registered for Women Who Lead Lunch, that's just going to be up to the second floor. That takes place at 12:30. Otherwise, lunch is also going to be served right here shortly, so just give us a moment to transform the house. Enjoy, and our conversations will start back up at 2 p.m. Thank you all very much.